And I am a registered psychologist that works in Calgary, Alberta. And today is going to be part 2 in a series that I'm doing around anxiety. So if you want to look at the first tape that I did, it was around what anxiety is doing in our brain. We were introduced to our amygdala, that I like to use the Harry Potter figurine to describe the fast fight, flight, freeze part of our brain. And today is more around what parents can do to calm that amygdala down, and what we can teach our kids and our students and our teenagers that they might do themselves if they're in a moment of feeling really overwhelmed by a big feeling. If you want to learn more about anxiety and ways that you can coach kids through big feelings, because we know that it's through relationship with another that we really make sense of the big feelings that are going on for us, please come to a talk that I'm doing on June the 25th, 6:30 to 8:30 at Living Spirit United Church. To buy tickets, it's $20 a seat. You just go to Eventbrite, search my name, Tasha Belix, and it will pop up. And I'd love to see you there. Come with lots of questions, and we will dig deeper into this topic. As well, I guess, as a little disclaimer at the beginning, know that what we're talking about and what I'm going to share with you guys today is by no means the same as going to have an appointment with your doctor or school counselor or a psychologist that you know. This is really an introduction to some tools that we know can be helpful. But if you're really worried about your little munchkin or your teenager or even what you're noticing in yourself, I encourage you to reach out for support. Anxiety is something that I think in the past we always thought you just had to suck it up and learn to live with it. And now what we know about the brain and how it works and how we can rewire certain patterns that we've developed is that anxiety is something that people can walk away from. So there's a lot of encouragement and real hope that this is not something that people need to live with forever. So to you parents, if you notice your child or teenager showing behaviors or symptoms or speaking like they've got extra pressure on themselves, I encourage you, instead of being the detective that wants to ask a gazillion questions, to first just acknowledge the fact that you've seen an emotion pass over their face or that they've got something big happening in their body. And it really could be as simple as, wow, it looks like you're feeling something really big, or I'm getting the sense that you seem pretty overwhelmed about something. I'm hearing thoughts that sound like they're pretty bossy, like you're worried about something pretty big. Just having someone make a connection and validate what we are feeling and what it is like being us is incredibly soothing and helpful. And that is the number one job as a parent. It is not jumping in there and teaching a gazillion skills in that moment. It's first noticing the emotion that's on someone's face and labeling what you see in front of you, and then validate it. And even if you have a very different opinion about things or don't maybe agree with how your young person is making sense of the situation, to him or her, it is absolutely real. And we can think of ourselves what it feels like when people dismiss how we feel or what our thoughts are. It kind of ticks us off. And it's no different for our teenagers and children. We want to really validate their experience because it is true to them. So validating looks like you zip your lips and you do a lot of nodding. Can you tell me more? I'm not going to go anywhere, kiddo, and I don't think any less of you for this. So that's really the tool that I'm going to give to parents. That's the big one that you want to do, is really notice that feeling in the moment. But there's stuff that you can do to teach your kids how to manage big feelings, to cope with anxiety when it comes, that they can practice with you in a time when they're not escalated. You want to do teaching always at a time when we're in a relaxed and kind of happy state. This is a message for teachers as well. If our fluffies are kind of activated, we're not having that integration and information flowing to the upstairs part of our brain. And we know that people learn the best when they're feeling relaxed and happy. So you don't want to teach when someone's in the middle of a really escalated experience or panic kind of episode. We want to do the teaching when someone's in a relaxed state. You might go on a walk and talk about some of these strategies. You might do it at cuddle time at bedtime, or when someone's playing in the bath. But you want to catch somebody at a time when they're receptive and ready to learn properly. So the neat thing about our fluffy is that there's a way that we can calm it down, and really what we know from neuroscience, the probably most effective way to calm down that amygdala flare is breathing. And so when we talk about doing belly breaths, so doing a nice deep inhale, and as you do that, know that that deep inhale, and as you slowly exhale, which wants to be a little bit longer, as that happens, neurotransmitter is being secreted onto your amygdala that calms this little guy down. So when people say, go back to your breathing, it's really helpful. It's really helpful. And not everyone, it's not always what we automatically do when we feel overwhelmed. So you may teach someone to do something like this. For little kids, they love blowing bubbles. And we know when we're blowing bubbles or blowing bubble gum, in order to get it to be really effective, we have to breathe quite slowly and consistently to get that great big bubble. The same if you've got a bubble wand. It's a really neat way that you can show little people how to do that slow exhale out. You might even have bubbles in your car, in your purse, in your classroom, in their bedroom, because it might be a ritual that you start at nighttime where you do dip the bubble wand and do 3 big breaths and talk about, you might be blowing away some things that are worrying you that day, or finding a way to get that extra energy out of your body, or making a wish that you want to blow all over the world. And the more that we can engage our imagination with some of these skills and make it relevant to the person that's in front of us, the more likely they are to be able to implement it and make it part of their daily practice. So I sometimes also just grab this like a tissue. And it's a neat way to show kids how to do a slow exhale, because tissues are readily accessible. And as you do a breath in, we can all do that. But as we breathe out, we want our Kleenex to fly. And you might do 10 of these breaths. So a nice inhale in, and then a slow exhale out. You might challenge him or her. How long can you keep it flying? And so again, when we're doing these kinds of things, they're playful, they're pretty fun, we know that we're helping to calm down that amygdala. And so even if I'm sitting in class and I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I practice some of this stuff, I could imagine that I have a tissue in front of my face, and I could still do that slow breath out and still know that I'm helping to calm my system down. Another neat thing that I think is kind of cool is the pencil trick. So this is the cool part about how our brain works. It's amazing. So by smiling, we know when we laugh and when we're happy, endorphins are released, we feel great. We can actually increase our serotonin and improve our mood, which reduces anxiety because we're feeling more relaxed, by faking it. So even if we're not genuinely happy inside, by putting a pencil in our mouth, like so, it makes the corners of our lips turn up. And the corners of our lips turning up actually sends a message to our brain to secrete serotonin. So if we hold that for about 60 seconds, that can even shift the way that we're feeling. How cool is that? You might think of a funny joke and have that in your head, so that if you're feeling overwhelmed, you've got a new thought that you can kind of insert and find a way to kind of change how you feel, because you're changing the way you think. I always find it something really helpful to help kids with, and parents as well, is to think of a thought that would be helpful to have when you're feeling overwhelmed. Oh my God, I'm going to die is not so much of a helpful thought. It might be there and it might be pretty loud and bossy, but what could you maybe remind yourself of instead that might be actually more helpful? So if I'm a young person, I might remind myself, this is just a feeling, and all feelings come and they go like waves in the ocean, and I know this is going to come to an end. If I'm a parent looking at my kid that's overwhelmed, I might say, this is going to pass. Just breathe with me, kiddo. I'm not going anywhere right now. You are not alone. And that might be something that's helpful for them. So your kids are amazing. Teenagers are amazing about the things that are helpful for them to pull to mind. You might have someone that wants to remember the Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off. So not only are you thinking of a thought, but you've also got an action that goes with it. And we know with feelings, we have to do something with them. It commands us to get our body involved. So if you think Taylor Swift, and that is helpful for you, and you shake it off, and that helps you out, awesome. That's a great strategy to use, and it really, don't judge the genre or the content that people are using to help them out. I've heard all sorts of things, and if it's helpful to the person in front of you, that's fabulous. Another thing that's really helpful too, again, when we think of doing something with a feeling, is to get our body involved. People do progressive muscle relaxation, and one that I think is really helpful to think about is to imagine that you've got a ripe lemon in your hands, and you just imagine, so it's juicy, and you want to squeeze as much of the juice out of that as possible, so your fists are really, really tight. You can do this in class, you can do it while you're in the middle of an exam, when you're falling asleep, when you're going on a bus ride to somewhere and you don't know if you're going to make it on time. So you squeeze your hands, you might count to 10. So you start at 10, go to 9, go to 8, and you're squeezing as hard as you can the whole time. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And when you get to the end, you slowly let your hands melt open, and you just check in with what you notice happening in your hands. You might think of a couple words that kind of describe what that feels like. Mine feel beautiful and light and very sleepy. So that's another thing that you might try to do. I think there are some fabulous resources online. There is great stuff on anxietybc.com that comes out of Children's Hospital. It's all well researched. It's fantastic. There's a great book that I think parents ought to pick up if you're wondering about a young person in your world that might be struggling with some anxiety. Helping Your Anxious Child by Ronald Rapey and a bunch of other authors. It's excellent and very much behavioral based. So it's not saying, hey, this little kid's got a problem. It's this whole family, or all the key players around this little person, or maybe what are we doing to help support this young person to stay in this stance. So everyone gets to learn to do new stuff. And I love it for that reason. It's incredibly encouraging, and it really helps people walk away from anxiety. There is another fabulous resource that's called What Do You Do When You Worry Too Much? And it's kind of a journaling exercise guidebook for parents to read and then to do with their kids. And so this might be something that you want to pick up before the summer comes and work on it, one lesson a week. And by the end of the summer, you will have a lot of neat strategies under your belt. And parents find this stuff as helpful as kids do. So know that it's no different if you're seeing a psychologist to learn strategies to relax. If you're an adult, you learn to breathe and to do progressive muscle relaxation and think of positive thoughts that are going to be helpful for you, which is awesome. So again, I encourage you, if you want to learn more about this subject and have questions about it, to come and join me on Sunday, June the 25th from 6:30 to 8:30 at Living Spirit United Church, where I'll talk about anxiety and the skills of emotion coaching. Go to eventbrite.ca and Google my name, Tasha Belix, and you will find a way to buy tickets there. And I encourage moms and dads to come together, because if you get this information at the same time, you can talk about it on the way home and really start approaching things from a different perspective. And often, I guess, as a softening for where parents are coming from is when we see our teenager or young person change who they always were, or their worries kind of stopping them from getting to choose the life that they want or enjoy the activities that they once loved. It's not so weird to think that we would maybe coddle them and protect them because we want them to feel better. And sometimes in our stance to kind of kangaroo parent our anxious child and kind of pop them in that marsupial pouch, we actually can be part of what keeps that problem going and perpetuates it. So, but it's a very normal stance because we love our little kids and we want them to be okay. So by no means would I want parents to feel any shame or worry about what they maybe have done in the past. We as parents, one of my nice teachers said, we kind of F up every single day. And I think that's a really nice way to look at things. We, with our best intentions, make mistakes left and right. But wouldn't it be neat to have better information so that we might sidestep some of those big ones that aren't so helpful? Anyways, until next time, remember to breathe and be well.